Guys, how's it going? Today I want to talk to you about the fourth book I read this year, which was The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This is a very powerful and gripping memoir about Joan Didion losing her husband John very suddenly to a heart attack in their own home, and how their daughter Quintana was at the same time experiencing a serious illness that led her to be in a coma while her father was dying. And all of this stuff was happening to Joan at the same time, and after all of this, she had this year of magical thinking where she basically tortured herself trying to come up with ways in which she could have prevented these events to happen. Like, what signs did she miss along the way, and all of that jazz. And this was an amazing book, and I really have to thank Ashley from Climb the Stacks. I will put her link below. She said that in 2013 she started her year off reading this book, and it was a great reading year. It started off with a bang, and it led her to want to read other Joan Didion works, and I am glad I have done the same. So basically, this book was very emotional. I read it on the train, and my biggest regret is that I got about 30 pages in and had to stop because I was, like, physically weeping, and I had this urgent need to, like, write everything down as I was experiencing it, and I didn't have pen and paper with me, and I also didn't want to be in that vulnerable space with these strangers, and I was on my way to work, and all these excuses. So I kind of fudged up the reading of the very beginning of this book, and when I got home later that day, I went back and reread those 30 pages and then almost finished all of it in one sitting. But you can't get back that experience of reading those first couple pages ever again, and I just wish that I had stuck with it. So please, if you're reading a book in public, don't be embarrassed. That's just a announcement to myself, I guess. This book has a lot of jargon in it, like medical jargon, that I had to keep on looking up, but at the same time it was super interesting because the body processes like before and after death are not very well known to, you know, regular people like you and I. So I was looking up things like septic shock and fixed pupils and what happens when your brain gets pushed to one side, and it's called like a midline shift or something like that. It was fascinating learning about these processes, but at the same time I felt really guilty because I felt so close to Joan's experience and her husband and her daughter's you know, physical loss. It was fascinating, but at the same time it made me feel guilty for being fascinated. It was interesting. I also felt guilty about being really interested in how she describes grief. She says it comes in waves, and that she experienced this overwhelming need to sigh all the time, or that she just she felt cold because her body was like physically shutting down because it just wasn't working properly because of her incredible loss, and she just can't even send any messages to her body from her brain because her brain is only thinking about one thing. And also, like, her sinuses were getting blocked up because of unshed tears, and oh man, it was just so much really awesome imagery. And the whole time I was thinking about Adley, one of my main characters from The Sun Went Red, and how I can use this imagery in my own writing. But I felt guilty because it feels like I'm cheating, like I'm gaining all of this knowledge but without the experience. So in a way it feels cheap, like if I were to just write those words on the page, it would sound like I know what I was talking about, but in actuality I'm just feeding off of the things that I've read from Joan's account. So anyways, that's just my experience. So she talks a lot about pathological bereavement and how there's kind of acceptable forms of grief. Like in society we have sort of an unsaid time limit to grief. Like, okay, you know, you have this certain amount of time that you can mourn, but then eventually we want you to kind of move on, and we don't want to hear about that person anymore. There's different levels, but she experienced what she calls pathological bereavement, which is when you are unusually dependent on your partner for pleasure, for validation, for acceptance, for all of these things. And, you know, she had this incredible relationship with her husband, John. They were married for almost 40 years. They had a beautiful daughter together, and they were also both writers, and so they worked from the home together, they traveled together, they always read each other's work before it was published. They shared secrets, they shared lives, and it just made me think about my relationship with Colin, about how we are so dependent on each other, and just time is so short and precious, and you need to really take a look at your life and see how you can improve it and how you can be more open with the people that you love, because you never know, they could just keel over in your house like it happened to John, or like her daughter. So anyways, this was sort of a rambling review. I'm very, very sorry. This took me so many tries to try to get this out for you guys. I'm just gonna have to kind of let it stand as it is. I gave this book 4 stars. I'm reserving 5 stars for something incredibly perfect like Harry Potter or any of the Black Jewels trilogies or anything by Ayn Rand or my favorite authors or something, but 4 stars is pretty freaking good, just because it was so fascinating and emotional and gripping and tense, and the pacing was awesome, the writing is really good. I did, however, think that some of the medical jargon, like I said, could have been explained better. She kind of just dumps a lot of stuff that you just don't understand at you, and sometimes she goes off in tangents about her past life that really just kind of takes away from the chronological events. Like, you just want to know what happens next. So no, it wasn't perfect, but it was a great read, and I do really recommend it. And I wish I could just put into words better how I felt about this book, but maybe that says something about it, that it touched me deeply in a way that I can't even express. So I hope you are doing well. I will see you in my next video.